Today I'm here with one of a kind, Johnny LaVallee, founder and CEO of Johnny LaVallee Photography.
Yes.
We actually just finished doing up some new headshots for myself and figured why not give them a little Q&A. So Johnny, without further ado, who are you? What's your story? Please tell the world.
What's up, guys? I am Johnny LaVallee with Johnny LaVallee Photography. I am originally from New York City. Been living in LA for 11 years now. I started off in the business as an actor, which I still am. The interesting thing about being an actor is a lot of time you have a lot of downtime between jobs, right? It's a pretty fair assumption. So throughout the years, I started to get to a place where I felt like I was lacking creativity between acting jobs and auditions. So I decided to pick up a camera, and literally overnight became completely obsessed with lighting and composure and videos on YouTube, and I couldn't get enough.
What inspired you to pick up the camera?
My wife's brother-in-law, a guy named Tim Davis, who's a phenomenal photographer in New York, he is a photography professor, and he came out to LA about 7 years ago on sabbatical. And I started following him around, taking photos in LA. He's a street photographer.
Awesome.
So I got to sort of play with his camera and kind of start learning things from him. Mm-hmm. At that same time, I coincidentally booked a National Jeep commercial, which put some money in my pocket to buy my first camera.
It's important,
right? You gotta have money. It's not a cheap habit being a photographer. But I bought my first camera, which was a little Sony point and shoot.
Okay.
Within 3 months, I had upgraded my camera 3 times. Right? I needed, a camera that could switch lenses. And then I needed a better lens, and then I needed to go from a crop sensor to a full frame sensor. Mm-hmm. And then I just started shooting all of my actor friends here in LA. Okay. Right?
Big pull for those. Endless amounts.
Yeah, and I've been in LA for a long time, and I know a lot of actors. So I started shooting friends of mine. They started posting photos that I took of them on their Instagram pages. And then friends of theirs started contacting me, asking how much it costs for a session.
With the industry, I feel like with the invention of the iPhone, the phones, everyone thinks they can be a photographer.
Yeah.
And I feel like, how do you guys stay elevated and separated and at that high level, to warrant the prices that you guys charge? How does that work? Or what separates you from others?
So this is kind of the thing at the end of the day that you can take an incredible, there's a saying in the industry, and it's the best camera you have is the one that you have on you, right? Mm-hmm. So you can take incredible photos with an iPhone or a phone camera at this point in time. But the difference is when you put on a real lens onto a camera, you're dealing with things like your aperture, right? So you can shoot in a way that isolates the subject, blurs the background out in a really beautiful way, and then you can really start to dial in a manual mode and start getting really creative with your photos and your skill that you can't do with an iPhone. It's just not possible. And then you get into editing, right? You get into the editing of the photographs. The sensor size on an iPhone is about this big.
Okay.
Really tiny. So it's a small amount of information. On a full frame mirrorless camera, you're dealing with a couple inches. Mm-hmm. So it's a tremendous amount of information, and you have a lot more flexibility in post to sort of kind of get what you want to do from an artistic and a creative standpoint as well. So
I feel like editing definitely is where people really make their shtick. Just a couple more questions.
Sure.
What do you use and why do you use it? I know there's a debate. Is it Sony or Canon?
Right. There is that debate. I'm a Sony shooter for a few reasons. Number one, it was the first camera system that I bought into. Okay. Right? I had this guy Tim Davis in New York. He said if you're going to invest in the camera system, he said invest into Sony. I said okay. And he at the time was a Canon shooter, but wanted to sort of switch over.
I feel like most people go from Canon to Sony, not the other way around.
Yeah. Well, Canon was the leader of the pack for so long. Yeah. Right? They were the industry standard for professional photographers. over the years that's changed. Don't get me wrong, Canon still has incredible cameras, incredible lenses. But what Sony's really doing, like as a portrait photographer, one of the key things that I don't ever want to do is miss a shot, right? Within the Sony cameras, they have a real eye autofocus tracking within the camera. So if I'm doing a portrait shoot, a little tiny green box goes around whatever eye I decide that I want to shoot you on. And wherever you move, the camera's constantly, by the artificial intelligence within the camera, is finding my focus. So like, I'm not missing focus ever.
I'm sold. So.
Right, you know, and it just kind of boils down to focus for me. But again, you know, Canons are great cameras, and I think Sony's better.
Sure. I love it. Just one last word. What would you say to anyone who's out there aspiring to be a photographer or struggling in their business? Words of encouragement or advice, tips? If you could start over and do it again, anything that could be helpful.
I mean, if it's something that you love, continue to follow your passion is like the number one advice that I can give anybody.
Passion never fails.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something you really love, make sure that, you know, make sure you're putting the time and the effort into your craft, because at the end of the day, that's incredibly important. Learn light, watch as many YouTube videos as possible.
Is that where you learned?
That's where I learned.
You're self-taught?
Everything, yeah.
So no, go to school.
I mean, go to school if you want to. I mean, there's a lot of amazing professors that you can learn a tremendous amount from. I mean, you know, I probably could have learned a few things maybe a little bit faster if I was in school. But I got to go through the trial and error process, which I feel like, you know, is priceless in a lot of ways, because, you know, now when I'm on set and something's going wrong, I know how to fix it incredibly quickly, right? Instead of just being like, well, I was in a class and they did it like this.
Awesome. And for everyone out there, tell them where they can find you, book you, connect.
You can find me, I'm on Instagram at LaVallee, LaVallee.L.A. And you can check me out at photographybyjl.com. All my photos and rates and everything are on there. So,
Johnny, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Wish you the best. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.